Recorded live. This is an interactive podcast designed for audience participation. Come talk, text chat, or listen live at TalkShoe.com.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Connor's Corner. We are grateful today to have our friend Lee Carroll, a very interesting man with a very interesting background, and we will be covering a lot of different topics over the next 60 minutes with our friend Lee. Lee, welcome to Connor's Corner and TalkShoe. I appreciate you making time to visit with us today. How are you?
We're on Connor's Corner?
We are.
This must be a mistake. I thought I was doing Mary Kay Cosmetics today.
It's on the corner of Connor's Corner and Kryon Street.
Well, I'm just being silly, and I'm very appreciative of being with you, Mike. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Where are you calling in from today? Are you at home in the San Diego area?
That's exactly where I am, at home in the San Diego area, my favorite place to be, and one of the sweetest spots on the planet. Of course, I am biased because I was born here, but we have never seen snow, and let's keep it that way.
Is that right? Well, as I understand it, you've had to cancel a couple of seminars recently as a result of what's going on in Colorado and other places.
Indeed, the weather is changing greatly, and that's part of what we had talked about 18 years ago, and this was the first time I had ever had to cancel anything because of weather. And interestingly enough, I'm told by my hosts, we just picked up about 30 more people because of it. In other words, there was more news generated by my cancellation than by my coming, and people found out about it. Yeah.
Well, that is amazing. That is amazing. And for background purposes, Lee, you and I had the opportunity to meet a year and a half ago or so when you made your first trip to Dallas through my efforts and through Laura's efforts. And you have had a very interesting life over these past 18 years. If memory serves, you were an engineer in the music industry up until 18 or so years ago, and then things seemingly took a big shift and change for you, and you reluctantly stepped into your new career. For those who may be listening live or would like to know more about your background, tell us a little bit about how we got to talking today and the 11 books that you have published and the 2 more on the Indigo and the other ones that are coming out this year. You have a very interesting story.
Tough to do on a soundbite, but let me just tell you that the industry I was involved with, indeed, I was in music, but not in the music industry as much as the technical industry, audio and video for film and video. And so I was the guy who did the audio recording for commercials, documentaries, and motion pictures. We never got to see any stars, and it was pretty underwhelming because we sat in a little room without windows. That's for most of my life. And I tell people that I am the commensurate hermit. I really enjoy being alone. I like to be with equipment and not people. That was my life. It was a good one, and I did well, and was very successful at that. And it was when I was in my mid-40s that this all started taking place. And the story is an old one. I don't want to bore listeners with things that are well-known that I've talked about for years, but just to say very, very briefly, I was dragged kicking and screaming to a psychic channeler, actually, in those days, and I was very, not only just a hesitant, I was one of those guys who made fun of them all. So I've had a lot of experience with hecklers and stuff because I was one. Mm-hmm. And so I really do fully understand what it feels like not to believe in this stuff and have a tremendous empathy for those who don't, for good reasons. So because I was that person and didn't want to go, and this guy told me some stuff I didn't believe, and just leave it at that. And 3 years later, I was taken again to another guy. And the reason I went there, by the way, is I was with my partner Jan at the time, and she took me, very new age gal, my business partner. And she, it was her birthday, so that's why I went. So you understand the dynamics there, Mike. So I went to this other guy he's about 20. The first guy's about 60, and he told me the same thing. And this, they don't know each other. The thing that they both told me, that there's a magnetic master on the other side of the veil named Kryon. A name, to me, it sounded like spray paint, by the way, and who was going to, want to talk to me. And I was supposed to talk to this guy or gal or whatever it was. And I just was floored the second time it happened because what are the odds that a guy who didn't know the other guy 3 years later would have the same message about a name nobody had ever heard of. So this really set me going. And you might say that it took 3 years of introspection before I decided that it was okay and it was real and all like that. But it was really kind of a show me experience. And the joke was that it took logic in order to get me off the pile and start looking, because that engineering brain said, I want to know more because this can't be happening. So that's how it began. And then it led to the channeling. It led to the writings. It's been 18 years now. We've been writing constantly, and I think we're 11 Kryon books and 2 Indigo books. Along the way, Jan and I introduced the Earth to the term indigo children. A lot of people have heard of that. We were the ones who put that forward. That book has sold 500,000 books in 24 languages. It just has gone around the world. I'm not known as the indigo guy. I'm the Kryon guy, and yet that's part of the journey. So I report it. And now, of course, the indigo children is even going to hit the Webster's dictionary soon, and it's been reported by even the major networks and things of this nature, whether they believe it or not, or whether they're going to make fun of it, but it's still there. And that was our doing as well, and it was all channel material. So that's kind of the journey up to now.
So you want us to believe that you spent time in a 14 by 14 cubicle with egg crates cushioning on the walls, and now you travel the world, write books, and talk about a magnetic master on the other side of the veil. I would think there's some electromagnetic challenges in your last industry, Lee. I mean,
yeah.
What an amazing story.
Well, if anything, it goes to show that when you do have an epiphany and when things change, there can be remarkable changes. I was not a writer, and I am now. I was not a public speaker, and I am now. I was on the other side of the mic, not this side of the mic. So all of those things came about, and it's almost like I was doing it all the time. The equipment was there, I just didn't know it, and so here we are. So yeah, it was a remarkable change over a relatively short period of time, and I show and I tell people that if you wonder if you can do stuff, and I say there goes me, because I was the one kicking and screaming and saying I can't channel in front of people, I can't speak in front of crowds, I can't write a book, all of these things. Those were all things that came out of my mouth. So I tell everybody I can that there's a lot going on in who we are and who we think we are and what the perceptions are.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Again, we are with Lee Carroll, the channeler for the entity Kryon, the Magnetic Master. Lee is calling in from the San Diego area and will be in Dallas next Sunday here at the Spiritual Fitness Center, just off I-75 in the Richardson area, from 3 to 8:30, and we're all looking forward to that, Lee, and your visit back to Dallas. What a wonderful opportunity for many of us to reconnect with you again.
I love Dallas. It's when I didn't travel much during my whole life. I didn't travel much. I've done all the traveling I've ever done in the last 18 years, and it's all been with Kryon. So I've got to go to places that I had some really interesting ideas about. For instance, Dallas is one of them. All through my childhood and as a young man, I had seen movies. I saw the movie Giant. I saw some of the others, and I knew where I was going. I was going to a place where there were just tumbleweeds, called Dallas. And I was so shocked when I landed because, of course, there was a big city, high fashion, water, lake, all kinds of trees, all kinds of things. So I was laughing to myself when I landed and saying, this is kind of like a paradise,
We like it very much. We appreciate your making time to come back again. It's only been a year and a half, and I know that typically that's a little sooner than you would go back to a city, as we discussed late one night after dinner. Yeah,
there are certain cities I will come back to sooner when I know that the energy will support it. I'm very careful. I don't come back too soon because there's the human nature thing says it's kind of like they've seen me before, they just saw me, and time goes quickly, and it's almost like they've seen the movie. So we try to wait 2 years before I come back. But Dallas is different.
Great. Well, we appreciate that you're doing it. Give us a little background, Lee, on the history of channeling. I know it's a part of the presentation that I've witnessed before, and certainly its roots go back very, very far. Share with us a little bit about what channeling is and how it works for you. What is your sensation when that takes place?
Let's start it when I think the beginning is. You'll have to understand that here is a contemporary man you're listening to now giving you his opinion about channeling. Now, I am a channeler, and I've been doing it a very long time, so that opinion perhaps is grounded in a lot of experience. But I have also been given intuition about what it's all about. If you're listening, for instance, to this particular program, maybe as an archive right now, and you are not familiar with channeling and you have an idea of what it might be, let me give you an update of what to maybe change the perception. I would say almost all of us believe in God, whatever that means to you. According to Time magazine, 85% of the world does, and the rest of them are on the edge of believing it. So it is something intuitive that we all share. Most of us don't believe in channeling, and we know that. We're in some people call me not a niche market, but a lunatic fringe market. I'm okay with that and familiar with that, but I would like to genericize this a little more and say that there are no messages that have been written by God anywhere on earth. And what I mean, even the Holy Scriptures, not written by God, they've been written by men and women, and that is the truth. But whether it's the Koran, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, whether it's Christianity, whether you're Jewish or whatever, all your Holy Scriptures you will find were written by men and women. And so what does that tell you? Where did they come from? And you know, what was going on? My Christian friends talk about the Apostle Paul sitting in prison 30 years after Christ's death, writing all of the Scripture, and in the New Testament it's so profound. And I'm saying, but that was Paul, wasn't it? And they said, well, yeah, but he was speaking under the anointing of the Holy Spirit. And I think, so what is that called? And we have called that channeling. And so channeling has become that state where you are, or a human being is in touch with something other than themselves, angelic presence perhaps, the God entity, some say the higher self. It changes depending upon who you're speaking to, whether you're a Hindu or a Buddhist or Catholic. Even the Pope channels. And I would like to tell you that there's a chair in the Vatican called the Chair of St. Peter. And when the Pope sits in it, a Latin phrase takes place called ex cathedra, which means in a chair. And that means that everything he says is infallible. So even he has a place where he sits, connects, and speaks. And what he says is infallible, and that's the channeling that they have. So almost every religion has a way of touching the high end of whatever they think their spirituality is. In the case of the Pope, he's Christ's vicar, and this is how he does it. So we say that the history of channeling, therefore, is any time, whenever it first happened, when men were spoken to by God and gave that message. And so this is the difference between then and now, and the Apostle Paul, for instance, and myself, is that we're looking now at different kinds of energy where we are all encouraged to get these messages through our higher selves. And we're not necessarily writing the Bible, but we may be writing our own Bible. We may be writing things for our own selves and our own lives, answering the questions that only we can ask for ourselves. What will I do? What's correct? What's incorrect? Where's my guidance? What's my morality? All of these things. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do I turn left or right? Wouldn't it be great to say that, well, why don't you just get in touch and find out? That would be channeling. So that's, if I wrap that part up, I say that's the history. That's where I come from. Now, there's a whole lot of, stuff around it. There's responsibility. There's a whole set of rules that if you do it long enough, you start realizing what they are. And you can't do it idly. If you're going to release it for other people, you've got to make sure it's correct. And therein lies discernment. And some people do it before it's ready, and I don't have to be the one to tell you who that might be, but I'll tell you, if you listen to a whole bunch of them and you find people who are trying to get you to do what they want you to do, they're not channeling. They've got an agenda. So one of the first things is there's no agenda. It's usually uplifting, and you'll find that in Scripture, uplifting messages from Spirit that congratulate you and give you advice for bettering yourselves. So that is the crux of it. And the more longer I do it, the more convinced I am that it is correct and proper. It is not weird, and there's a lot of people who agree with me.
Amazing. I found the guidelines for discernment and the part about the responsibility and the footnote that you have about channeling on your website, Kryon.com, under the About Channeling section if you scroll down near the bottom. And those are certainly attributes that I know that you believe in and that you espouse, and that I think it's a really good snapshot, if you will, of some of the key things that are important in channelers. And certainly your background in 18 years and the messages and the receptivity of your books and the number of people that visit with you via the seminars and cruises and things of that nature that you host pretty much every year is a testament that your messages do meet these criteria and that people feel much better about their lives and themselves as a result of the empowering message that we seem to hear from you versus one that's a little more egocentric that we may hear from others.
There are a whole lot of us, it's not just me, there's a whole lot of empowering speakers today that some of them claim they're channeling outright and some don't claim they're channeling, but they are. And there are some who are friends of mine. There are some who actually grew out of my own organization into what they're doing now. The message is not me alone, and it never really truly was. We had something happen, and whether we talk about it or not, in 1987 to the Earth, we call it the harmonic convergence, which really started a shift. My friends talk about this in various ways, even including my friend Kahu Fred Sterling in Hawaii, and he even wrote a book called The Great Shift. He had his epiphany in 1989, exactly when I had mine. It's almost like we were channeling the same things from different directions, in different ways, different words. But when we got together and started discussing it, we found out we were getting the same message almost exactly, and that is we have changed. The world has shifted and changed, and so things are not like they used to be. And we have a lot of people who are channeling, like I am, various messages, and they all sound similar in different words. I like to encourage people to visit some of these sites. I don't have the names of it, but Rona Herman is one who has channeled Archangel Michael. And there's probably a lot of people who channel Archangel Michael. God bless them if they do. It's a wonderful entity to do that. And it's, anybody can channel Kryon too. That's the nice thing about this whole idea. It's open. Anybody can talk to God, and they always could. And that'll get me in trouble because there are religions who say you can't. You've got to go through somebody else. I don't believe it. Not with my experience, I don't believe it. And what I've seen in my work, I don't believe it. So I know that I have a direct connection, and almost everybody does. Rona Herman, for instance, helped me get my start through her benevolence, kindness, graciousness, non-competitiveness, and showed me some things about human nature that I had always wanted to see before. So I have my heroes, too, in this, and I take my guidance from a lot of people that I really feel very privileged to know. She's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, wonderful. One of the questions, and I think you have already broached it a little bit, that was called in or emailed in earlier today was, can everybody channel, Lee?
Yes, sir. Everybody.
And who exactly is it that they believe they're channeling? How does one know that it is their higher self, that it is Jesus, Archangel Michael, Kryon, or Kryon, or anyone else along those lines?
Good question. Let me take you back. I first saw this, and you don't have to be spiritually minded. You don't have to listen to a program like this, read a Kryon book, or get weird in order to understand this. And I want to talk to anybody who's ever seen creatives work. I spent my life in front of musicians, and I saw them scoring movies. And they would come in, the clients would come in with these scenes that looked like right out of a B film. They were not edited. They were ugly to look at. They were in black and white. And the scoring, creative scorer had to look at that stuff, go around the studio, and come up with melodies. And what I saw was just astonishing. Now, let me just paint this picture for a minute, because it may seem like I'm not really answering the question, but here you got grown men in the studio. None of them are talking about channeling. None of them are talking about Kryon. Nothing religious. We're doing our jobs, okay? And so out goes the scorer goes out there, comes back a little later, starts playing on the piano, and pretty soon out develops a melody. And some of these melodies you hear in these films that to this day will go down in history as some of the greatest love themes that you've ever heard, have come out of somebody's head instantly at the time that they needed it. And they said, I can remember these guys, and sometimes we'd all well up with tears when we'd hear these things. And we'd say, where did this come from? Surely you had this in the back closet or something. And they'd say, no, I didn't. I don't know where it came from. But there it is. This is channeling. This is channeling. The same thing happened in Michelangelo's brush. He had talent, but look at what he did. So what I'm telling you is that the creativeness comes from inside. Now, what is that, and how is it manifested, and how can you touch it? Those are the questions I think you're asking.
Yes.
And it first starts with you understanding that don't give it a name. It's you. It's the piece of God in you. Everybody has to give it a name because we're in 3D, right? So sure. We call it the higher self. Christians call it the Holy Spirit. Everybody's got a name for it because everybody's aware of it. So you get in touch with that. That's the veil. And then coming through that is all of this power, a source of knowledge, talent, music, art, all of these things come sailing through. And then you can, you want to start identifying who is touching you. In my case, I knew it was Kryon because this was a message. Many people don't channel in entities at all. They channel what I would call what my friend Steve Rother did for years. He channeled the group. And we'd say, well, who is it? You got to give it a name. And he said, there's no name. He says he didn't want to use the word collective because that was like Star Trek's Borg. If you're a science fiction guy, you know what I'm talking about. But it truly is a collective. When you go to the other side of the veil, you're not going to be, they're not lined up with bodies and angels don't have skin and wings like we paint them. It is an energy that you're tapping, which is all together. And so it's tough to discern who it might be. But many people know who it is because that energy steps forward. I'm my Archangel, I'm Kryon, I'm Jesus. But most of the time, you have a situation where people are channeling simply their higher selves. And that's the same source. It just doesn't have a fancy name that sounds like spray paint.
Gotcha. And it's probably messages for that individual and perhaps not necessarily messages for the world.
That's correct. And sometimes even the channeler I went to for the very first time, he was one who channeled his higher self, but his messages were profound for everyone through his higher self. I think it was, I think the name was Adama or Adamus or something of that nature, not to be confused with the Lemurian lady, but who some of you know. But I remember that very vividly. I was wondering who that was, and that turned out to be his higher self. And the information was good.
Wonderful. Amazing. Again, we're talking with Lee Carroll, one of the channelers for the entity Kryon. Lee's calling us from the San Diego area. And Lee, you're heading to Denver. Is it next week if the weather cooperates?
Actually, I'm going tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning? Okay. I understand the weather is cooperating.
And it is cooperating. Glory be. And the gods of snow have visited and done their thing, and now it's smelting, and that's a good thing.
They have cleared a path for you.
And the planes can land, and that's all I care about. Is I want to get there. Yeah.
I understand. How wonderful. Well, Lee, it seems like there's a general consensus among channels that 2007 is going to be a very significant year, and it's likely a great shift in consciousness. What does Kryon tell us about this upcoming period? Can you give us a glimpse into what we might expect this year?
There's a whole lot of information going on, specifically even about some dates, I think some September dates and things of this nature that I've heard. Kryon has not pegged any specific day or month or even the year of 2007, but he's always told us that there is power in numerology. And now I'm going to lose a lot of people because I used to really poo-poo the whole idea of astrology, numerology, all of these things that, I thought they were occult. You only find them in a devil's lair. So come to
sure.
find out they are some of the oldest sciences on the planet. They're sciences of energy. And they work, and there's reasons why they work that are more than just esoteric. And I'm not going to get into that, but I've seen it with my own eyes many, many times. They're great tools. So numerology, and numerologically speaking, 2007 is a 9. 9 in numerological terms means completion. As we move toward another year called 2012, we are looking at trying to complete some of the old energy puzzles that we have been working on since 1989, when the harmonic convergence happened. And 2007 is being touted as one of the years where we were going to have some completion, some closure and some completion. Now, people always want to read, well, what does that mean? Are we going to have a war? Are we going to have a bomb? Is there going to be a big terror hit? And what if it was just the opposite? What if we all came to the agreement that we had a better way to create peace on Earth and nothing happened that was bad? I tell you, we had one of those in 1988, 89. And I don't know how many people gather around and celebrate that except the people of Russia. And that's when the great evil empire itself fell over. It just fell over. I was a kid for 50 years as a kid, half a century. They were the ones we were fighting. They were the ones that had the most bombs and the most missiles. They're the ones who went to space first. And I tell you, Mike, in 1988 and 89, the unthinkable happened, something that Revelation did not talk about, something that Nostradamus never talked about, and that is the evil empire, if you want to call it that, fell over all by itself through consensus of the Russian people. And so there is an example of a year, 1988-89. If we'd have said, this is going to be the year of completion, everybody would have been frightened. There wasn't one shot fired. Nothing happened that was bad, except that a lot of the guards on the wall lost their jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
So you take a look at that. That's revelationary. That is awesome stuff, apocalyptic, because it was out of the purview of all of the seers and all of the psychics and all of the scripture. It just happened, seemingly, and it shocked us, and we had peace on earth suddenly. And, of course, what we've done with it is another story, but there it was, a wonderful opportunity, and I can't how I feel about these things because nobody even marked it in the calendar. There isn't a big celebration. They didn't give it a name. Had there been a bomb dropped and 1 million people dead, that would have got a memorial, and
we'd be honoring it still to this day.
Yeah, as the end. But
grieving. Yeah.
But here is it's out of the paradigm of what we expect, and I'm telling you that these things are possible. And 2007, it could be one of the years for it.
Interesting. I wonder, Lee, when you go from city to city, continent to continent, and you sit down in front of whether it's 50 people or 5,000 people, as you've done in many auditoriums around the world, when it is that you get a sense of what you're about to talk about, I would think there's got to be some great degree of apprehension about sitting there in a chair in front of all these people and not having the spigot flow and not having the energy packets come down through you.
Yeah, you're talking about what authors have called what writer's block might be.
Sure.
And if it were coming from me, Mike, I would be frightened because all human beings share that issue of self-worth, issue of wonder whether you're good enough, is it going to continue? But it took me almost literally a decade to realize what was truly happening. A change happened in me a little while ago, just a few years ago, and it's part of my growth cycle that made me relax with this so much. I relaxed with what people thought. I relaxed with the hecklers. I relaxed with, going on television no matter what people would think, realizing that what was there was not only real, but it was inexhaustible in its source. The promise is that I'll channel Kryon as long as I live, as long as I follow certain rules of channeling ethics, and they are for me, not for anybody else. And everybody has their own rule set if you want to ask about what it is. The first one is don't get filled with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't decide that you're the star suddenly, because when you do that, then that spigot will be turned off. It's not going to be turned off. It's just that your spigot suddenly will be bigger, and you won't be able to find the other one.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
So you can't do that. There's some others that I've been very careful with. Kryon is never supposed to channel on the air. This means that what this really truly means is that you can release tapes and things like that where there's free will. If somebody wants to play it or stop it, that's their free will. But just to have it flying through the airwaves and have somebody kicking back with a brewski, turning around surfing the channels, coming across me, channeling, that is not appropriate. It's not. It doesn't serve the medium. So these are various rules that I have been given for me, and I've turned down a couple of documentaries because of that. And I don't blame them, because they said, they want to see. They don't want to talk to the magician without the magic, so we couldn't do it.
Sure.
So there we have the answer to your question is it's always there. And is there apprehension? There used to be. And there is not now. And I have had so many times where I have been. Just last year, where I walked out in Switzerland, and then another time in Austria, and here are people that don't even speak my language, and they're not in my culture, and they're all sitting there waiting for. Each one has a different idea of what they're going to have or what they're going to get. And by the time we begin, I'll tell you, there's a unification of oneness. There's a love that fills that audience. Pretty soon, they all know why they're there, and they're there for a healing session for their own hearts. Mm-hmm. And it works. It works that way, and it truly does. And it doesn't matter what language. Next year, this year, I'm going to Russia. And so this last year I went to Argentina and Mexico. And it doesn't matter what culture it is. I've been to Israel, to the Hebrews, now to Israelis twice, and it just and Japan. That we're all the same. It's at the heart level. No matter what you've been trained in your culture, we're all the same when it comes to these spiritual things. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm just probably getting off of your question, but it's there used to be apprehensive, and now apprehension. There's not. It always flows. It always flows.
I appreciate the honesty and the depth of your answer, because that is what's really important. Everybody that you will meet next week here in Dallas has read many or most of your books and are very familiar with it, but they want to understand a little bit more about what goes inside the human while this is going on. For instance, Lee, did you have a period of time where your body's energetic circuitry had to be rewired, for lack of a better term, to hold this vibration, to be able to take the words of Kryon and the information packets so that you could actually hold it without, I would use the word quivering being a word that might be used? Did you have any physical aspect changes?
When I first began, for instance, and this is a growth cycle for Lee Carroll, I could not speak it. It could only be written. There was just no way it could be spoken. 3 years into it, I started opening my mouth. So what happened in those 3 years was a rewiring, but I'll tell you, no angel came in and rewired me. The rewiring came from Lee Carroll. This guy had to decide if it was, can the human get out of the way? So the rewiring was me with me, and this is what I teach. And there's a lot of people I've seen do this in 3 weeks who needed 3 years. So this is my obstinance and stubbornness and my perception of growing up and what I thought was real and what was not real and what I was told in my scientific mind that kept me from going all the way until it was ready. So yeah, there is definitely that growth time. And if I had started channeling verbally and opening my mouth, I might have gone into that place that you say where it would have been too scary, where there would have been quivery, too much energy too fast. Mm-hmm, but sure. I was fortunate to have this kind of a mind that would never allow me to go faster than I was supposed to go. And when it came time to do the things I was supposed to do, even then I wasn't truly ready, but I was put in a place where Kryon would say, do it. And I would say, I'm going to need help. And he'd say, I always, guys, I tell you, and I don't hear voices. These things are thought groups. They're part of me when these things happen. And sometimes you'll see me smiling during channeling on stage when Kryon and I are actually having a conversation apart and beyond what is being channeled, and he is saying, I'll help you through it. And there's no greater feeling than having an angel take your hand.
I'll bet.
And that is what goes on when I'm in front of thousands of people and I'm sitting down saying, I haven't the foggiest idea what I'm going to say. You know. And when we begin, out will come not only just, you know, lovely things, as it always does, but there'll be like a six-pointed plan. There'll be 8 subjects. There'll be a lecture with structure. It's if you go back and start looking at the many things that Kryon does, he normally puts it into a structure, like a teacher would. And these things are not known to me in advance, and they come through in that fashion. And then when you see me, when it's all over, you'll see me really smiling, greatness. That's the feeling of, we did it again, it worked again.
Amazing, Lee. Again, for those of you who are just joining us right now, you're on Connor's Corner on TalkShoe, and we have as a guest today Lee Carroll, the channeler for the entity Kryon. Lee will be joining us in Dallas on Sunday, January 14th at the Spiritual Fitness Center from 3 to 8:30. And if anybody is interested, having heard this little session with Lee so far, please email us at cryondallas@yahoo.com for more information, or go to the kryon.com website and look for the seminar and the workshop section, and you'll find us here in Dallas. And please get in touch with us right away so that we can save a spot in the room for you all to experience the energetic field that Lee is articulating for us so beautifully right now.
I want to talk to your listeners for a moment, those who might be listening live and those who might be listening to the archives in the next week and months. There's something really, truly phenomenal happening right here, right as you listen. And you may not mark that as something amazing, but you'll notice there are no commercials here. This is free. And the resources that went into this have to be paid somehow, but it isn't by listening to commercials in between the breaks. There aren't any. Those of us who are authors go on radio shows often, and when we go on them, quite often there'll be an hour show, and literally we will only speak 20 minutes. And the rest of it is interruptions and commercials. That isn't happening today just because of this venue and the kind of technology that we're looking at and different ways of these people making their money. So here you are, and you get a whole hour, and it's a whole real hour. That's very, very unusual.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for those kind words, Lee. You have spent time not only crisscrossing the world, but you have actually channeled a number of times in front of ambassadors at the United Nations. Can you give our listeners an idea of what it is like to have a channeler at the United Nations? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but I think you've been there 4 times, and they keep asking you back.
Yeah, I think we're about ready to do our 5th or 6th time, and let me just give you a perspective. Yeah, there's a difference. It's the only time I ever wear a tie. Well, I take that back. I also wear a tie in Japan. So I'm very culturally appropriate.
Wonderful.
Because the man on the street's wearing a tie, I should also on stage. But the whole atmosphere is different. But let me set the stage. The United Nations has what they call a social club. There's many of them. There's probably 60 or 70 social clubs that are clubs that the nationalities usually have of their own. The Africans will have a dancing club and this kind of thing. And long ago, there was one for the people who were spiritual, who wanted things like channelers, like psychics, sometimes UFOs and those kinds of things. And that became the Society for Enlightenment and Transformation. And it is a chartered member of the UN. So it belongs to the UN. Only employees and delegates can go, and members of the club. You can join the club if you want to, and you don't have to be part of the UN. But if you live in New York and want to pay the membership due. But it's a closed group, and it's we have channeled in committee rooms, the Dag Hammarskjöld Auditorium. So it's inside the secured areas where only the delegates and the employees can go. And it'll be a short one. It's like an hour, and it's or maybe an hour and a half. It's supposed to be what they do, on their lunch break. And as I say, we've done it 4 or 5 times. And I'll just give you, just since you ask and you want some personal information and stuff that perhaps so few have heard before. There was my first time I remember was my first time to New York City, and you talk about perceptions. I was not ready for New York City. I thought that's where everybody gets mugged. I'm from San Diego. It's not a big city.
Sure.
And so here we were in New York, and first thing that happened is I felt great. I realize now that New York is a place that really agrees with me. The city does, and it's not a place I think I would like to live. I love San Diego where I am, but I have no trouble going there. I fit right in, and I like the energy there. So I was bowled over by that revelation. But then when I went to the UN, I didn't know who was going to be there, and I was puzzled and a little bit fearful. And this is the early days also. And I don't mind telling you that this guy has his issues too. And one of them was, am I good enough? And what do they say? There was this one guy in a gray suit with big bushy eyebrows. I watched him the whole time. We did our thing. We meditated. We channeled the whole thing. And my brain was saying, this was back in my first time being there. What was it? 91, I think. Anyway, I thought he's a Russian. So here we are with another perception of what Russians must be like, and especially if he was a delegate and USSR and all the other things that we had been trained and perceived all these years. And so we finished, and much to my shock and a little bit of my horror, he stayed. He wanted to stay in line. And I thought, well, oh no, he's staying. The Russian is in line, So here he was, everybody shaking my hand, and they have to get back to their meetings and stuff. And sure enough, he was a delegate. It's right on his chest, this delegate. And I looked at it and I gasped. And I hope he didn't hear me because it said Russia. I was right.
Uh-huh.
Russia. He was from Russia. And he looks at me. I look at him. Tears well up in his eyes, and he hugs me and he says, "We need you here." And I about melted.
How about
I tell you this because you make judgments, you make up your mind beforehand. Here was a guy who was so ready for this message, and he was a light worker. He was a delegate from Russia, and I had sized him up and decided he was somebody else, in my mind. Mm-hmm. And he made me feel so small that day. I'll just never forget that. So there's a lot of these kinds of experiences, and it doesn't get old. When you get into that building, and a lot of people want to relegate it to uselessness. A lot of people say nothing happens there, and they don't know the majority of what happens at the UN. It's about children's issues. It's about disease. It's about clean water. There's just a whole bunch more than the Security Council that you see doing very little.
Certainly. Lee, we have a lot of people who have called or emailed me in the last couple of days since we announced that we were going to have this chat with you today. Some are interested in changing careers. Some are interested in, is being a medical doctor appropriate for me versus a light worker versus an energy medicine kind of profession? Wow. How can I make a transition into that? We have all sorts of things going on, not only in this country but around the world, relative to the indigo children and what they are and how they're acting. And you and I had a chat probably 6-8 months ago regarding one of the indigo movies that was coming out, and we had some interesting chat about that as well. Can you give some insight to your perception of what it's like for people in the process of changing careers and challenges in different areas, especially with family?
Two big issues, two big questions I want to think about. We'll do the first one.
Okay.
And that is about the changes. If you are out there and you're thinking about, suddenly it's come up and it's not really a midlife crisis at all. It's not the right age for you to be thinking about this, but suddenly you're saying, am I doing the right thing? Should I stay doing this? And you've been through, let's take the medical doctor, for instance, because that's probably the most profound. You've gone through a decade of training in order to get you where you are, in order to earn the living that you're living or that you wanted to have. And that's a focus that has always been there. Suddenly you're saying, well, shall I change professions, being a holistic worker or something else like that. If you're that person or somebody like that person, I'll tell you, you are among hundreds who are looking at the same thing, including MDs. I had one of our hosts in Ottawa named John, MD, made that exact decision, retrained in a whole nother way in holistic medicine, hanging out a whole different kind of healing shingle today than he did before. And when you talk to John, people want to say, well, how does it feel, to not be an MD anymore? And the answer is he's still an MD. He's used everything he knows and was trained for, and then graduated to something that he feels helps people even more, but still uses all the knowledge that he was trained in. So it's not about shifting gears or changing and throwing away anything. It's about enhancing and going to the next level. As far as if you should do it or if you shouldn't, those of course are the big questions. The very fact that you're thinking about it ought to tell you that it's a potential you ought to be considering. And then the big answer is timing. Is when is right, and I caution everybody to say it's don't step off the cliff too fast, because in your perception of spiritual things, it looks like God says now, and really God's now is like what
Sure.
What is like God made the earth in 7 days, so that's the now I'm speaking about. It may not be the instantness of it, and it may take a few years, but definitely is worth thinking about and moving toward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. And thank you for your insights on that. And for relative to the Indigo Children and the work that you have done there and the new book that you've got coming out in the not-too-distant future, I guess it'll be your third Indigo book. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How do you expect this book to affect the planet?
Well, it's unfortunately that we have to write a book. Fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know. But what has happened with the Indigo Children, and I'll just be very honest and candid, has disappointed me, is that it's become a fad word and misunderstood. And for the sake of commerciality, it has been put forward. Money has been thrown at big, would you say, PR firms in order to involve mainstream. Whether it's the New York Times, whether it's USA Today, whether it's CNN, they have all done reports on it because this money has been thrown at them to do. That's the way it works, by the way. I'm sure most listeners know that, but these things don't just happen by themselves. There's a system involving money that is given to PR agents, and then that's why the stories occur. That's what drives the guests on the Tonight Show. So they're all promoting a book, a movie, or something. So bingo, out comes these Indigo films, and there's been a couple of them now, and none of them have really been about the issue, but they have carried the name Indigo. I think a lot of them wanted to ride on the popularity of the word. And what has happened is that when you say Indigo Children to some people, they say, oh, yeah, that's that lunatic fringe group that believes all their kids are super psychics and have blue auras. And we didn't say any of that. That's not the way it is at all. This is a new consciousness of human being born on the planet. That in its essence. That was the color was identified by a woman who had a brain disorder called synesthesia. She was not, New Age or psychic or anything. And she got to see energy, and that's very well documented. So really, it came from a science basis. And what she saw was the kind of human energy color that she had never seen before, and that's when we started seeing ADD and ADHD become just absolutely almost like chemical diseases, exponentially growing. It's not a disease, it's a social disorder, and it's supposed to be a niche, and it isn't, and now it seems like the whole population has it. That ought to tell you something that's going on. So this book is going to I want to try to retrench and draw folks back into the center of what it is. And we're going to have to do that with by pulling on people who work with children, who work in the children industry, teachers who teach teachers, PhDs, daycare workers, sociologists who are going to come forward, and we got them, who are saying, yeah, it's real, here's what you can do about it, talking to parents. Now we have some of the kids who are hitting, of course, an age. I mean, we came out 7 years of that book, and they were like 10, and that was probably the oldest, 10 or 11. Well, now they're 17, 18. They're hitting McDonald's. So now you got them in the workplace. And I'll tell you, this is a chapter yet to be written, is what employers and the human resources groups and corporations are beginning to see and go through that they can't even believe. I mean, they're the ones now pulling their hair saying, what is happening to society? Because they're beginning to see the indigos, and they've never seen a human like this. The kids don't want to, how do you say this gently? They have, these children are beyond their years. They don't want to have to pay their dues, right or wrong. I'm not going to justify that. I'm just to tell you they don't want to. Therefore, they're not interested in service jobs, and so they resent it big time. And so I don't know if you've noticed this. They won't look you in the eye. They don't want to. They just want to go home.
Yeah, play video games, right?
Yeah. So, and it's it makes it sound like they're all bad kids. There's not. This is what happens when you have a different kind of countenance, intelligence in a body that's now being asked to do things that only the former generation. Hello, that's my phone battery leaving, but I have another one. Aren't you glad?
Okay.
Anyway, what they formerly other generations have done, without even asking. Should I or not? And these kids are not only asking; I have a very funny story. I'll try to make it quick, but it epitomizes it. In Hawaii, there are cruises. We take cruises, and thank you for mentioning. Every year we do a Kryon cruise, and we go back to Hawaii about every 3 or 4 years. It's such a beautiful spot. It's Lemurian energy, and the cruise ships out of there. I think they're Norwegian Cruise Lines and a couple of others. They're all foreign-owned. And there is a law in the United States that says that if you have a foreign-owned ship, if you're going to sail with Americans on it, you've got to touch a foreign port before you can come back. Those are the rules. I don't know how many even knew that. If you go to the Bahamas, that's easy because you're going to the Bahamas.
Sure.
If you go to Alaska, that's easy because Canada's up there, and you touch Canada on the way. And so you've got but when Hawaii, what do you do about that? And the answer is, in the past they sailed 1,200 miles down to the Fanning Islands and back. It takes a day and a half to 2 days out of your trip just to fulfill the law. So they made an agreement with the state of Hawaii and the United States government that if they would hire only American crew, they wouldn't have to do that. This was 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And according to the travel agency's guides, the newspapers and the Honolulu Daily and all of these things, it was an absolute disaster that American kids had no concept of service. They didn't want to know. They didn't care to know. And the people who were taking the cruises were just mortified at what they got.
Oh, my.
We got a sample of it because we went on one of the cruises. Now, this is all changing greatly, but you go up, we went to one of these dinners where everybody's wearing white gloves and everybody's in formal night, and it was like formal night at McDonald's. You know, I got my salad, and then 35 minutes later, I got the dressing. You know.
Okay, sure.
It was just they were in the back room doing something else. You know.
Gotcha.
So I'm just telling you, there is a change of consciousness, and it's not just our culture. Talk to them in Japan, where, you know, everybody is supposed to do the same thing, and if you don't, you're in trouble because you interrupt the harmony of the culture. Well, the kids aren't paying any attention to the culture at all. They're just doing what they want.
You
know.
You bet. Amazing.
So,
when is your next cruise, Lee?
What's that?
When is your next cruise?
Oh, they're always in September.
Okay.
We're going
every year, every couple of years?
Oh, every year.
Okay.
And this time, we're going back to Europe this time, and we're going to leave from Barcelona at the, I think it's the end of September. It's on the website.
Mm-hmm.
And we are, or it's the beginning, I forget. Anyway, it's leaving Barcelona and doing the Western Mediterranean. It's going to be great. There'll be Spanish translation because we have lots of Spaniards over there who want to come with us.
I can imagine. If memory serves, you were on a cruise in Hawaii when 9/11 occurred.
Correct.
And there was a very special channeling that was pulled together for that, as I recall.
Yeah, it was. Everybody has their 9/11 story, Mike. It's like my generation. had its John F. Kennedy story when he was assassinated. Everybody remembers when they were, where they were when he assassinated. This 9/11 generation belongs to my sons, and they'll always remember that. And then my father's generation, they remembered Pearl Harbor. So these were things that you'll never forget. And we were almost as far away as you can get from New York without coming back to it, and that's Hawaiian Islands. And the ship was named the Patriot, USS Patriot. And, of course, everybody was afraid of everything at that moment, that how big was it going to be, were there more of them, and so the ship was kept from docking certain places, and they stopped all the airline flights. Of course, nobody could get home, and so it was quite a time. But the very day that it took place, we all met in a non-scheduled meeting, and there was a channeling, and we all sang "Let There Be Peace" and "Let It Be With Me," begin with me, and other things. And we heard stories from people that had relatives in New York, some miracles that had taken place. So it was an unbelievable time to be in that beautiful place and see that tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Well, we thank you for sharing that with us. And anyone listening who would like to visit with Lee personally next week here in the Dallas Metroplex area. And Lee, we have people coming from as far away as Denver who are rescheduling as a result of last week's snowstorm, who had commitments, unfortunately, for, I guess, tomorrow or the next day in Denver.
Oh, bless
They're
your
coming
heart.
in. People are coming in from Austin and Houston and San Antonio and all over the area just to spend some time. But those of you who are listening or who have been sent this link may want to give it a opportunity to visit with Lee directly next Sunday, January 14th, at the Spiritual Fitness Center just outside Dallas on Interstate 75 in the Richardson area. You can go to Kryon.com and find out more information, or you can email me at cryondallas@yahoo.com, and we will get back to you instantly with details and information and make sure we have enough room for everybody. And because the room is in the process of filling up, we're asking people to get in touch with us right away so that there's nobody we have to turn away at the door. Nothing would hurt us more than not being able to host as many people as would like to attend. So we're going to do our very best to go do that. And so we invite you to contact us either via the Kryon.com website or at cryondallas@yahoo.com. Lee, we've got a few more minutes left in our call today before we call it a day, and I want to thank you again for making the time and the opportunity to visit with us and letting those people, especially here in the Dallas area, get a little background into what it is that you're doing and what you bring from the human perspective to this great work that you're doing. Is there anything in particular as a closing message that you would like to leave with the people who are going to say hello to you next weekend?
I think the thing is that the Kryon message has never changed. He's very one purpose, if you want to say that, and that is that we have changed our futures, and all you have to do is look out the window to see this. Whether it was unexpected countries and governments falling over, the unexpected wars that were unexpected, 9/11 that was unexpected. It doesn't. Things are not following what we were told would be, and prophecies are not happening. Nostradamus' quatrains are literally gone. Nothing seems to be germane anymore to the situations we're seeing. Some people are fearing it, and other people are starting to understand and realize we have changed the future. You want to know why and what's going on? There is a spiritual revolution going on where people are starting to take responsibility. There's a whole lot of things going on internally with people, changing jobs, as we've talked about, thinking about their lives. There is good news beyond the bad that you see on the news. There's a lot more good than there is bad. There is no good news channel yet. Maybe there will be someday. Maybe that's me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a joke. It's a good news channel. So I just want to tell people that there is hope. There's reason to be hopeful, but you can't sit back and just hope. You've got to be part of the solution, and that's what I teach, and that's what we do, and that's what my work's about.
Lee, we are very anxious to see you again here in Dallas next Sunday, and we look forward very much to our opportunity to visit with you and see the new information that you are ready to share with us during your presentation, and then, of course, those 45 magical minutes at the very end where it all seems to come together in a way, shape, and form that none of us can predict right now. What a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for joining us today on Connor's Corner, and we look forward to seeing you on January 14th here in Dallas.
Thank you, Mike.
Our best to Patty. Thank you, Lee. Take care now. Goodbye.